In just 43 seconds, Steve Harvey went from smiling guest to walking off the View's stage after Joy Behar accused him of being a fraud on live television. What started as friendly banter exploded into one of the most heated confrontations in daytime TV history, with Behar doubling down on her attacks until Harvey had absolutely enough and stormed out, leaving the entire studio in shocked silence. Before we get into this explosive drama, make sure you subscribe to this channel for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Trust me, you don't want to miss what we uncover. So last night on The View, Steve Harvey walked onto that stage with his signature smile, waving to the audience like he always does. The crowd was pumped, clapping and cheering because, let's be honest, Steve Harvey is America's favorite game show host. The band was playing, the lights were bright, and Steve was doing his classic walk. You know, the one where he struts across the stage with that confidence that made him famous. He was wearing one of his perfectly tailored suits, the kind that probably costs more than most people's cars, and his mustache was trimmed to perfection. He greeted each of the hosts individually. He hugged Whoopi first, then Sarah, then Sunny, and finally he got to Joy Behar. When he hugged her, there was this weird moment, this split second where you could see Joy's face, and it wasn't exactly warm. It was more like she was tolerating the hug rather than enjoying it. But Steve didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did and just ignored it. Either way, he sat down in the guest chair, adjusted his tie, and flashed that $1,000,000 smile at the camera. "Steve Harvey, everybody," Whoopi announced, and the audience went wild again. Steve waved, blew some kisses, did his thing. "Thanks for having me, ladies," Steve said, his voice booming across the studio. "It's always a pleasure to be here with you beautiful, intelligent women." The hosts all smiled and thanked him. Well, except Joy. She was smiling, but it was one of those tight smiles that doesn't reach your eyes. The kind of smile you give when you're being polite, but you're really thinking about something completely different. "So Steve," Whoopi started, holding up his new book, "you've got this new book out, and it's already climbing the bestseller lists. Tell us what this one's about." Steve leaned forward, getting into his groove. "Well, Whoopi, this book is really about personal growth and understanding your purpose. I've been blessed in my life to have multiple careers, multiple opportunities, and I wanted to share with people how they can find their own path, their own purpose, even when life throws obstacles in their way." "That's beautiful," Sarah said, nodding enthusiastically. "I think so many people struggle with finding their purpose, especially in today's world where there's so much pressure to have everything figured out by a certain age." "Exactly," Steve pointed at her. "Exactly right. And that's what I want people to understand. I didn't host Family Feud until I was in my 50s. I didn't write my first book until my 40s. Success doesn't have an expiration date." The audience clapped. People were nodding, feeling inspired. This was going exactly how these interviews usually go, smooth and positive and uplifting. But that's when things started to shift. "You know what's interesting, though?" Joy spoke up, and everyone turned to look at her. "You talk about finding your purpose, but you've had so many different careers. Stand-up comedy, then you hosted Showtime at the Apollo, then you had a talk show, then a radio show, then Family Feud, then you wrote relationship books, then you became this motivational speaker. It's like every few years you're doing something completely different." Steve nodded, still smiling, but you could see he was being a bit more careful now. "Well, Joy, I like to think of it as growth, as evolution. I didn't abandon comedy, I expanded on it. I took the foundation of what I knew and built other things on top of it." "Or," Joy said, leaning back in her chair, "you just go wherever the money is." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Sunny's eyes went wide. Sarah looked down at her notes. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The audience got quiet. That uncomfortable kind of quiet where people aren't sure if they should laugh or gasp. Steve's smile faltered for just a second, but he recovered quickly. "Well, I'm not going to apologize for being successful, Joy. I work hard, I provide for my family, and yeah, I make good money doing what I do. Is that a problem?" "It's not a problem," Joy said, but her tone suggested it absolutely was a problem. "I'm just saying, for someone who presents themselves as this wise sage who's got all the answers about life and relationships and success, your career path looks more like someone who's just following trends rather than following any real conviction." "Joy," Whoopi tried to interject. I think that's a little… No, it's okay. Steve interrupted, holding up his hand. His smile was completely gone now. Let Joy say what she wants to say. Clearly, she's got something on her mind. I do have something on my mind, Joy said, sitting up straighter. You wrote this book. Act like a lady. Think like a man, right? Sold millions of copies. And in that book, you give all this advice about relationships, about what women should do to get a man, how to keep a man, all of that. Yes, I did, Steve said slowly, clearly wondering where this was going. And that book made you a lot of money, didn't it? Book sales, the movie deal, speaking engagements, all of it. It did well, yes, Steve admitted. Right. Joy nodded. But here's my question, Steve. What exactly qualifies you to give relationship advice? Because, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't you been married 3 times? The audience gasped. Like, audibly gasped. This wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. This was full-on confrontational. Sunny put her hand over her mouth. Sarah was shaking her head like she couldn't believe what was happening. Whoopi looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Steve's jaw clenched. You could see the muscles in his face tighten. Are you really going there right now, Joy? On live television? I'm just asking a question, Joy said, playing innocent. You put yourself out there as this relationship expert, but your personal history suggests maybe you don't have all the answers. And I think that's fair to point out. Fair to point out? Steve's voice got deeper, that comedian at a heckler tone starting to creep in. You're bringing up my personal life, my past marriages, things that happened years ago. To what? To discredit me? To make me look bad in front of millions of people? I'm not trying to make you look bad, Joy said. But she was absolutely trying to make him look bad. I'm trying to understand why we, as a society, give so much credibility to celebrities who write self-help books when they don't actually have any credentials or training in the fields. They're giving advice about credentials? Steve laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Joy, I've been married to my wife Marjorie for 17 years. We have a beautiful blended family. We've worked through challenges. We've grown together. We've built something real. Yeah, I was married before, and those marriages didn't work out. But I learned from those experiences. That's what life is about. Learning from your mistakes and becoming better. That's a nice speech, Joy said dismissively. But that still doesn't make you qualified to tell millions of women how to conduct their relationships. You're not a therapist. You're not a psychologist. You're a comedian who figured out there's money in selling advice. The other hosts were desperately trying to change the subject. Whoopi was literally shuffling through her cards, looking for anything to redirect the conversation. But Steve wasn't having it. He was locked in now. You know what your problem is, Joy? Steve said. And his voice had changed completely. The friendly, jovial TV host persona was gone. This was real Steve Harvey now. The guy from Cleveland who fought his way up from nothing. Your problem is, you sit up here in your comfortable chair, with your comfortable salary, and you judge people. You tear people down. You act like you've got everything figured out and everybody else is just stumbling around in the dark. Oh, here we go. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. The typical response when someone gets called out. Attack the person, asking the questions, instead of actually answering them. Called out? Steve's voice got louder. You didn't call me out, Joy. You ambushed me. There's a difference. If you had legitimate questions about my qualifications or my advice, you could have asked them respectfully. But instead, you decided to bring up my personal life, my past relationships, to try to embarrass me on national television. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Joy shot back. I'm trying to point out the hypocrisy. You sit there and tell women they need to wait 90 days before sleeping with a man, like you've got some kind of moral authority. But where does that authority come from, Steve? What makes you think you know better than these women about their own relationships? Because they asked me. Steve stood up now, and the audience gasped again. Those women bought my book because they wanted advice. They came to my seminars because they wanted help. Nobody forced them to listen to me. They chose to listen because maybe, just maybe, what I have to say actually helps them. Joy stood up too. Or maybe they listen because you're famous and you're on TV, and people trust celebrities even when they shouldn't. The other hosts were freaking out. Whoopi was trying to motion to the producers, probably asking them to go to commercial. Sunny was literally frozen in her seat. Sarah looked like she might cry. But Steve and Joy were locked in this staring contest, neither one backing down. "You want to talk about trust?" Steve said, his voice shaking with anger now. "Let's talk about trust. I've been in this business for over 35 years. I've worked my way up from nothing. I slept in my car for 3 years while I was trying to make it as a comedian. 3 years, Joy. Living out of a 1,976 Ford Tempo because I believed in my dream and I wasn't going to give up. Where were you then? Where was your judgment then? Don't give me that sob story." Joy waved her hand dismissively. "Everybody in Hollywood has a hard luck story about their come-up. That doesn't give you the right to sell snake oil to vulnerable people." "Snake oil?" Steve's eyes went wide. "You're calling my advice snake oil? Millions of people have told me that my books help them find confidence, help them set standards for themselves, help them understand their worth. But sure, Joy Behar knows better than all of them, right? Maybe they just needed to hear it from a professional instead of from a game show host." Joy yelled back. And now her voice was raised too. The audience was going crazy. Some people were booing, some were cheering, some were just sitting there with their mouths open in shock. This had gone way past awkward TV moment territory. This was a full-blown fight happening in real time on live television. The producers were probably losing their minds in the control room. "A professional," Steve repeated, laughing bitterly. "You mean like a therapist? Okay, fine. Let me ask you something, Joy. When you give your opinions on this show about politics, about social issues, about everything under the sun, what are your qualifications? Are you a political scientist? Are you a sociologist? Are you an expert in anything other than sitting here and complaining?" "I'm a comedian and a television host," Joy said, her voice defensive now. "I don't claim to be anything else." "Exactly," Steve pointed at her. "And so am I. The difference is, I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to uplift people. Every piece of advice I give comes from a place of wanting people to succeed, wanting people to be happy. But you? What do? You tear people down. You mock them. You sit up here on your high horse and judge everybody who doesn't think exactly like you do." "That's not true," Joy said, but her voice wavered just a little bit. "It's absolutely true," Steve pressed on. "And you know what's really sad? You used to be funny, Joy. You used to be someone who made people laugh, who brought joy to people. I remember watching you years ago and thinking, she's talented, she's got great timing. But somewhere along the way, you became bitter. You became mean. And now the only way you know how to stay relevant is by attacking people who are actually still doing something positive in the world." Joy's face turned bright red. "How dare you," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "How dare you come on my show and tell me who I am?" "Your show?" Steve laughed. "Last time I checked, this was called The View, not The Joy Behar Show. And from what I can see, you treat it like it's your personal platform to attack anyone you disagree with, while your co-hosts just sit there and let you do it." Whoopi finally found her voice. "Okay, Steve, I think we need to—" "No, Whoopi," Steve interrupted, but he wasn't yelling at her. His voice was calmer when he addressed Whoopi. "I respect you. I respect all of you ladies. But I can't sit here and let Joy attack my character, attack my life's work, attack everything I've built without saying something back. That's not who I am." "Your life's work," Joy scoffed. "Your life's work is making people laugh at Family Feud and writing books that tell women they're doing relationships wrong. That's not exactly changing the world, Steve." "And what are you changing, Joy?" Steve fired back immediately. "What are you contributing to society other than negativity and division? At least when people watch Family Feud, they laugh. They forget about their problems for a half hour. They see families coming together and having fun. What do people get from watching you? They get anger. They get bitterness. They get somebody telling them that everyone they disagree with is stupid." The audience was split now. You could hear some people clapping for Steve, some people gasping at his words, some people yelling support for Joy. It was chaos, pure chaos. And the producers were frantically trying to figure out what to do, because this had gone so far off the rails that there was no coming back from it. "You know what?" Joy said. and now she was shaking with rage. "I think you need to leave." "Oh, now you want me to leave?" Steve said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Now that I'm finally telling you the truth about yourself, now you want me gone? That's convenient, Joy. Real convenient." "Yes, I want you to leave," Joy repeated, louder this time, her finger pointing toward the exit. "This is my show, and I'm telling you to get out." "It's not your show," Steve said again, his voice firm. "But you know what? I'll leave. Gladly. Because I don't need to sit here and be disrespected by someone who clearly has her own issues to work through. Someone who's so miserable in her own life that the only way she can feel good is by making other people feel bad." "You know what your problem is, Joy," Steve finally said, his voice calm, but you could hear the anger underneath. "Your problem is you're bitter. You sit up here every day judging people, tearing people down, acting like you're better than everyone else. And for what? What have you done that's so perfect?" "Oh, here we go." Joy rolled her eyes. "I criticize you, and suddenly I'm bitter. That's typical." "No, you're not just criticizing me." Steve stood up from his chair now, pointing his finger. "You attacked my character. You brought up my past, my marriages, things that have nothing to do with why I'm here today. You want to talk about hypocrisy? How about you sitting up here preaching about women, supporting women, but the second a man comes on this show, you're looking for ways to tear him down?" Joy stood up too now. The other hosts were trying to calm things down, but it was too late. This train had left the station, and there were no brakes. "I'd tear down men who deserve it," Joy said, her voice getting louder. "And you, with your smug smile and your relationship books, telling women they need to wait 90 days before sleeping with a man, like you're some kind of authority. Give me a break. You're not a psychologist. You're not a therapist. You're a comedian who got lucky." "Lucky?" Steve laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you do when you're about to lose it. "Lucky? I've worked my ass off for 35 years in this business. I was homeless, sleeping in my car, performing at clubs for $50 a night. Don't you ever, and I mean ever, tell me I got lucky. Oh, please." Joy waved her hand dismissively. "Everyone in Hollywood has a sob story about how hard they had it. You're not special, Steve." That was it. That was the moment. Steve Harvey's jaw clenched, and you could see him shaking his head. "You know what? I'm done," Steve said, ripping off his microphone. "I came here to have a conversation, to talk about my book, to maybe inspire some people. But you just wanted to ambush me on live TV to make yourself feel important. Oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt your feelings?" Joy mocked him. "Can't handle a little criticism? Maybe you should stick to Family Feud where everyone just laughs at your jokes and doesn't question anything you say." "My feelings?" Steve laughed again. "Lady, you couldn't hurt my feelings if you tried. What hurts is watching someone who used to be funny, who used to be relevant, turn into this bitter, angry person who gets off on making other people look bad. That's what hurts. That's what's sad." Whoopi was standing now, trying to get between them. Okay. Let's all just calm down and—" "No, Whoopi, I'm not calming down," Steve interrupted. "Because I'm tired of people like her thinking they can say whatever they want without consequences. You want to judge me? Fine. But don't act surprised when I tell you the truth about yourself." Joy's face was bright red now. "The truth? You want to talk about truth?" "The truth is you're a fake, Steve. Everything about you is calculated. Your suits, your mustache, your big laugh, your advice. It's all an act designed to separate people from their money." "An act?" Steve's voice got really loud now. "My advice has helped millions of people. My books have helped women find confidence, helped men become better partners. What have you done except complain and criticize? When's the last time you actually helped somebody?" "I help people every single day by calling out BS when I see it," Joy snapped back. "And right now, I'm looking at a whole lot of BS sitting right in front of me." The audience didn't know what to do. Some people were gasping, some were clapping. It was chaos. Steve started walking toward the exit again. But this time, Joy wasn't done. "That's right, walk away," Joy shouted after him, her voice echoing through the studio. "Just like you walked away from your first 2 marriages when things got tough." Steve stopped dead in his tracks. The entire audience gasped. Even Whoopi's head snapped up to look at Joy in horror. "Joy!" Whoopi said sharply. That's enough. But Joy was on a roll now, past the point of no return. What? It's true. He wants to judge me. Well, I'm judging him right back. Steve slowly turned around, and the look on his face was something nobody had ever seen before. It wasn't anger anymore. It was deeper than that. It was hurt mixed with fury, mixed with complete disbelief. You really can't help yourself, can you? Steve said, walking back toward the table. You just can't let it go. You have to get that last word in. That last jab. Even when you know you've already crossed every line there is to cross. I'm just telling the truth, Joy said. But her voice was less confident now. She could see she might have finally gone too far. The truth? Steve's voice was shaking now. You want to tell the truth? Okay, let's tell some truths. Yes, I've been married 3 times. And yes, my first 2 marriages didn't work out. You know why? Because I was young and I didn't know how to be a good husband yet. I was on the road constantly, working my tail off to make it in this business, and I neglected my family. That's on me. I own that. And I've spent the last 17 years proving that I learned from those mistakes. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Steve held up his hand. I'm not done, he said firmly. You think bringing up my past marriages is some kind of gotcha moment? Everyone knows about my past, Joy. I've talked about it publicly. I've written about it in my books. The difference between you and me is that I learned from my failures. I grew from them. But you? You just use other people's failures as weapons to make yourself feel superior. The audience was completely silent now. Some people were nodding. Some had tears in their eyes. This had gone from a TV confrontation to something much more raw and real. You want to know why people listen to me? Steve continued, his voice getting softer but somehow more powerful. It's not because I'm perfect. It's because I'm not. It's because I've failed and gotten back up. It's because when people see me, they see someone who's been through hell and came out the other side. That's authenticity, Joy. And that's something no amount of talk show hosting can fake. You can't manufacture that. You can't script that. That comes from living life, making mistakes, and having the courage to admit them. Joy was just standing there now, her arms crossed tightly, staring at the floor. For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked small, defeated. And let me tell you something, Steve said, now addressing the audience directly. To everyone watching, don't ever let anyone make you feel ashamed of your past. Your mistakes don't define you. What defines you is what you do after. Do you learn? Do you grow? Do you become a better person? If the answer is yes, then you hold your head up high and you keep moving forward. Don't let anyone use your past as a weapon against you. The audience erupted in applause, real, genuine applause. People were standing up, some of them were crying. It was like Steve had touched something deep in all of them. Something that resonated beyond this confrontation. Whoopi was nodding, wiping her own eyes. Sunny was clapping too. Even Sarah was applauding through her tears. The only person not clapping was Joy, who was still standing there with her arms crossed, refusing to make eye contact with anyone in the studio. Steve took a deep breath. You know what the saddest thing is, Joy? We could have had a good conversation today. You could have challenged me respectfully, asked tough questions. But instead, you made it personal. You made it ugly. You turned what could have been meaningful into a circus. And for what? To make yourself feel superior for a few minutes? I'm sorry you feel that way, Joy said. But it was one of those non-apology apologies. No, you're not, Steve said simply. And that's okay. But I am sorry that you're so unhappy that you feel the need to tear others down. I'm sorry that your viewers and co-hosts have to sit through this kind of behavior. He picked up his microphone pack and started walking toward the exit one final time. Steve, Whoopi called out, and he paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how this went. Steve turned and gave Whoopi a genuine smile. Whoopi, you have nothing to apologize for. You're a class act. Same with Sunny and Sarah. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. Then he looked at Joy one last time. Joy, I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, because this, he gestured around the studio, this ain't it. And with that, Steve Harvey walked off the View stage. No dramatic gestures, no parting shots. He just walked out with dignity, leaving behind a studio full of shocked faces and one very red-faced Joy Behar. The second Steve was out of sight, the studio erupted into chaos. The audience was buzzing. Some people were still applauding. Others were shaking their heads in disbelief. Whoopi was frantically motioning to the producers. Joy sat back down in her chair, trying to compose herself, but her hands were visibly shaking. She took a sip of water, but it did nothing to hide the fact that she looked completely rattled. "We're going to take a quick break," Whoopi announced, her voice strained. "When we come back, we'll continue with the show." But everyone knew there was no continuing from this. This was a defining moment, the kind that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. As the camera pulled back for the commercial break, the image told the whole story. 3 uncomfortable co-hosts, one defiant but clearly shaken Joy Behar, and one very empty chair where Steve Harvey had been sitting just half an hour before. The View had just witnessed its most explosive confrontation ever, and Joy Behar was sitting right at the center of it. Steve Harvey had walked off that stage with his dignity and integrity intact. Joy was left sitting in her chair, arms crossed, jaw clenched, trying to convince herself that she had been right to attack him, even though everyone watching knew she had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. The empty seat said everything. Steve Harvey had had enough, and he had made his exit with truth and grace, leaving Joy Behar to face the aftermath of a confrontation that she had started but definitely did not win.